reports out of China now that scientists have found a cure for diabetes, and the American pharmaceutical industry is not happy about it. There are now examples of Chinese patients receiving this experimental stem cell therapy and after about 11 weeks no longer requiring insulin, which I imagine is something that sounds amazing to people with diabetes, no longer having to poke yourself. But it doesn't sound amazing to giant American pharmaceutical companies like Eli Lilly, who currently dominate the insulin market and use it to make billions of dollars. And this has been very controversial as they've regularly increased the price of insulin, knowing that it's a necessary commodity that people with diabetes need to survive. And this is extra disgusting because the inventor of insulin, Frederick Banting, originally sold a patent for $1, saying that insulin doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the world. And if people can be cured of diabetes so they no longer need insulin, obviously that would really cut into the demand for this product and cut into their profits. And here we see the contradictory nature of the for-profit American healthcare system. Innovation and advancements in medical technology are actually disincentivized if they have the potential to cure the patient and make it so they're no longer a repeat customer for the pharmaceutical industry. So much for capitalism promoting innovation and socialism destroying it. In reality, it's the opposite.
Yeah! Kick it. 6:42 in the PM here on Friday, February the 21st, 2025. The future is here. The future is now, humans. Yes, it is. That number is 219-885-1371. That number again is 219-885-1371. At the top of the show, we said goodbye to the Iceman, Jerry Butler. And in the last segment, we talked about the hypocrisy of the right wing in America and what their true religion is and what their true ideology is. I'm sure that'll get the pewters Putin. But now, as you heard in the intro, we're about to get deep, deeper than Atlantis. Oh yes. For the past 80 years or so, we've been told that capitalism was the reason that there was so much innovation in the United States, to the point that you could argue that instead of Christianity, capitalism is America's real religion. We were told that non-capitalist states could not innovate and thus would always be behind us in the race to innovate. Well, recently we begin to see cracks in that narrative. First, China's DeepSeek AI program completely shocked Wall Street and the world by being more efficient and cost-effective than Silicon Valley's AI programs. Now, recent developments in China regarding diabetes treatments have garnered significant attention, particularly due to the claim that they have cured the disease of diabetes using stem cell therapies. So here's a summary of what's happened. Chinese researchers have reported monumental breakthroughs in treating both type 1 and type 2 diabetes with innovative cell therapies, which has sparked interest from all around the world. For type 2 diabetes, a notable case emerged in 2021 when a almost 60-year-old man who had the condition for 25 years and had lost most of his pancreatic islet function, underwent a cell transplant at Shanghai Changxing Hospital. Scientists used his own peripheral blood mononuclear cells, reprogrammed them into stem cells, and then transformed them into insulin-producing islet cells. These were transplanted back into his body. What happened? Well, within 11 weeks, he no longer needed insulin injections. He did not need insulin after just 11 weeks. And after a year, he discontinued oral medications entirely. Follow-up showed restored pancreatic function, and he's remained medication-free. You got to forgive me, folks. He's remained medication-free for over 33 months. This has been hailed as a tremendous breakthrough. and a world first for type 2 diabetes. For type 1 diabetes, a more recent milestone was announced in September of last year. A 25-year-old woman diagnosed when she was a teenager received a transplant of chemically induced pluripotent stem cell derived islets at Tianjin First Central Hospital. The procedure, detailed in Cell in 2024, involved taking her own fat cells, reverting them into a pluripotent state, programming them into islet cells, which were then injected into her abdominal muscles. Within 75 days, that's a month, that's 2.5 months, she became insulin independent. And over a year later, her blood sugar levels remained stable without injections, with glucose control in the target range over 98% of the time. This has been the first reported instance of a type 1 diabetes patient achieving sustained insulin production via this method. Now, in this case, the trial is ongoing, with 2 more patients enrolled showing promising early results. Now, obviously, there's going to be some excitement and skepticism, but more importantly, what we are seeing governments that are called our enemy regularly, our competitors regularly, who are told that they couldn't compete because capitalism is the only way to compete, the only way that we can have cures for anything, because Big Pharma actually doesn't cure anything. They treat a lot of stuff, but they don't cure anything. As Chris Rock said, the money's in the medicine. The only way that we can ever deal with any of these ailments is to allow Big Pharma to price gouge us. Even when we, as taxpayers, are the ones paying for the research and development on these drugs, they still are allowed to gouge us, charge us astronomical amounts of money just to live. And that is just called capitalism. That's just capitalism, folks. If we don't allow people to get astronomically rich and price gouge us in the process, then we get to die. There it is. It really is that simple. Well, China's saying that's not true. That's not the case. The American insulin industry is in damage control, of course. As you heard in the video, the man who invented insulin sold it for $1. He said, this isn't meant for me. This wasn't meant to make me rich. This was meant to treat people all over the world. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the world. But now it belongs to the multinational billion-dollar big pharma companies, soon to be trillion-dollar big pharma companies, who charge everybody an arm and a leg for insulin. Timothy Kiefer, a Canadian researcher, has praised the Shanghai results as a step towards reducing healthcare burdens, though he has stressed the need for broader studies. So we could have a cure for diabetes on the horizon. And instead of coming from the country that allows its companies to get astronomically rich while price gouging the public and holding you ransom, basically, your money or your life, it is coming from the world's largest communist country, China. And speaking of communism, Cuba has developed a lung cancer vaccine. I didn't even know you could develop a cancer vaccine, but apparently Cuba has done it. They have created 2 lung cancer vaccine CIMAVAX-EDF and Vaxira that continue to generate interest and discussion all over the world. Now, CIMAVAX-EDF was developed by Cuba's Center of Molecular Immunology in Havana. It is a therapeutic vaccine designed to treat non-small cell lung cancer, not prevent it, by targeting epidermal growth factor. The vaccine stimulates the immune system to produce antibodies to block EGF from binding to its receptor or on cancer cells, and this slows the tumor growth. Since its approval in Cuba in 2011, it's been administered to over 5,000 patients all over the world, including more than 1,000 Cubans. It's available in countries like Colombia, Peru, Paraguay, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Belarus. It is provided free to Cuban patients and costs about $1 per shot to produce, though medical tourists pay significantly more, understandably. In the U.S., progress has been slow, despite initial excitement. In 2016, Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center in Buffalo, New York, partnered with CIM to test CIMAVAX, launching the first U.S. clinical trials after FDA approval. Yet, full FDA approval remains years away. I'm sure it does, with estimates from 2015 suggesting a 5-year timeline, but that's still unfolding due to regulatory hurdles and further trial needs. The U.S. embargo against Cuba, which has been in place since 1962, makes this even more complicated. Now, relations have thawed somewhat under the Obama administration. It had under Obama, and they sort of enabled this collaboration between the Cuban government and our medical institutions here in this country. But Donald Trump tightened restrictions and sustained policies under Joe Biden. And so Joe Biden, a lot of people thought that Joe Biden was going to go back to the Obama method of sort of loosening restrictions on Cuba and sort of lightening the burden, but he did not. Joe Biden did not, unfortunately. This means that Americans cannot legally seek treatment in Cuba without breaking federal laws. So if you have lung cancer or your loved one has lung cancer and you go, well, Cuba has this vaccine that's going to inhibit the growth of cancer cells and possibly prolong or save their life, the American government, to protect Big Pharma, will just let you sit here and die, or let your loved one sit here and die. And who is the barbarians here? Who are the monsters here? Some patients, like George Keys from Colorado, have defied this order. Good for him. Traveling via Canada to buy Vaxira or CIMAVAX. But these cases highlight desperation. Think about how desperate you would have to be to know that you're breaking your own country's laws, but seek medical treatment in a country that is supposedly hostile to your country's government anyway. And think about how corrupt the government has to be that won't let its citizens get life-saving treatments that could possibly prolong or even completely save their lives. This is what I talk about on this show regularly. The issue is not Democrats versus Republicans, they are both the same party. Basically, there is a uniparty that supports Wall Street, Big Pharma, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex. Both of these parties do basically the same thing when they're in power. The Democrats do it in a nicer way, which is why the late, great Glenn Ford of Black Agenda Report used to always say the Democrats are not the lesser evil, they're the more effective evil. Because they can get stuff done that even the Republicans can't get done, like NAFTA. Ronald Reagan wanted to get NAFTA done. He couldn't do it. Bill Clinton did, though. The Clinton crime bill. The Republicans would have loved to have put a bill like that forward and have it passed. Couldn't do it. Joe Biden and Bill Clinton could do it, though. Deregulating Wall Street. Welfare reform, getting rid of welfare, as we know it, as Bill Clinton said when he was signing. Having two fat black women standing next to him while he's, taking benefits away from children. Ronald Reagan would have loved to have done that. But it took Bill Clinton to get that done. So you basically, even now, you have these parties working in conjunction with each other. Hakeem Jeffries just came out and said, oh, we're helpless to stop Trump doing anything. But wait a minute. The Republicans at no point ever said that they were helpless to stop Joe Biden from doing anything, even when Joe Biden had the presidency, the White House, the Senate, and the House. You never heard the Republicans saying, well, we're completely helpless. It's the Democrats' job to pretend to be completely helpless in these types of situations. That's their job. They control 90% of the richest congressional districts in America. Most of the richest people in the country vote Democrat. Why? It allows them to vote with plausible deniability. The Republicans get to be the bad cop. The Democrats get to be the good cop. And they both can crush Cuba and start wars with Russia or Iran or ethnically cleansed Palestinians. They can both help suppress cures to diabetes, possibly lung cancer. These people work for their donors. They don't work for you folks. They don't work for us whatsoever. They work for the corporate state. Let me get this caller. Hello, caller. What's up?
Hey, good evening. Good evening.
It's all good, Victor.
Hey, I got one off the wall for you. How about like somebody that represents our country as a State Department? Imagine our State Department is as bigoted as the rest of them folks. And so we've had foreign policy that's been fundamentally created by bigots.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wonder why we seem to evolve trouble.
Mm.
I mean, where have we been really? I mean, my friend used to say, well, America breaks eggs and they wind up with an omelet, But the fact of the matter is, either you're doing well or you're really not around here, right? And so but we're still talking about wages as if they're, with the minimum wages like $7 an hour, and you probably need about 35 to be okay if you got a kid, if you're married.
Mm.
The idea that we're still not even talking to figure out what kind of economic policy we need to focus on.
Right.
I mean, we're acting like it's the same old routine. And, these guys that came in power, right?
Right.
They got every aspect of the American government.
Yep.
And then they've got more than half of the governors.
That was by design.
And, of course, there's a long-running program they've got going on. They're very smart.
Mm-hmm.
They're very smart. The Democrats, we seem to act mostly pretty foolishly.
That's their job.
Yeah, I mean, we're like almost like stumble bumming around, and I mean, where's our policy? Okay, well, they want to. I mean, the whole concept is what we're going to do: piece things together and give you a broken, a jigsaw puzzle in a box, and say, hey, it's a great plan, figure it out. I mean, we don't have any strategy. I mean, a couple of congresswomen have the audacity to stand up for human rights. Imagine that. I mean, how many senators do? I mean, well, I'm listening to the hearings to get these guys into Trump's cabinet, and my gosh, man, it's like their records are like so they're just horrible. The idea they're talking about, President Trump is talking about the government policy to restrict information, and he's actually banning like different, news agencies from the White House because they don't agree with his policies.
Right.
Let's attack people that don't agree with us and make them our enemies. That's even the routine. I mean, he starts talking like he's going to be, okay, we're going to do this program. Next thing you know, he's talking about Biden and how the Democrats have got to pay it back for all the business he calls us. Right?
Right.
Anyway, wow.
Thank you for your call, brother. As always, you always drop bombs. Thank you for your call.
Yeah, big up.
Yes, yes. All right, folks. It's 7:02 in the p.m. That means it's time for a break. And when we come back, happy Abbies. We'll be right back after these.